Star Trek is all about anti-capitalism, and that is why one villain works so well. Star Trek, at its core, is all about anti-capitalism, and that is why the franchise's newest villain works so well. While known for cool starships and exotic aliens, Star Trek at its core presents an optimistic view of humanity's future. In the future Star Trek depicts, Earth has transitioned away from the horrors of capitalism, but in Star Trek Defiant 23, it rears its head in a distant sector. Star Trek Defiant 23 is written by Christopher Cantwell and drawn by Angel Unzueta. Alexander, son of Worf, is continuing the QV rite to restore his honor. Consisting of 3 parts, the second demands Alexander lay down his life for people he has never met, in this case, former Federation and Klingon colonists in the Arcanis sector, a hotly contested area of space where rampant, unchecked capitalism reigns supreme. Star Trek's future is one devoid of capitalism and the troubles that it brings, but it still exists in other parts of the galaxy, including Superintendent Menem's Arcanis sector. The Arcanis sector has been mentioned on screen a handful of times, but this marks the first time it has been seen up close in the franchise, and writer Christopher Cantwell and artist Angel Unzueta made it memorable. The worlds of the Arcanis sector are dull, lifeless, with all the joy stolen by soul-crushing, low-paying jobs. It is not a stretch to see it as a metaphor for life in the 21st century. The fleeting glimpse fans get of Superintendent Menem is ominous, and does not bode well for Worf and Alexander. Menem is emaciated with machine prosthetics, as if his body has been ravaged by capitalism. In the 24th century, it is not uncommon to see people with prosthetics or other accessibility devices, but Menem's robot arm is almost claw-like. It all works together to give Superintendent Menem an otherworldly appearance, despite him being supposedly human. A confrontation between Menem and Worf and Alexander is inevitable, and this issue builds the hype. Regardless, he was once a Federation citizen growing up in a post-scarcity utopia, yet somehow he regressed backwards. What is perhaps the most disturbing aspect about Superintendent Menem is he, according to Worf, was once a Federation colonist. Worf did not say if Menem was a colonist on one of the Arcanis sector worlds, or if he came from somewhere else. Regardless, he was once a Federation citizen growing up in a post-scarcity utopia, yet somehow he regressed backwards. Future issues of Star Trek Defiant may reveal more about Menem's backstory and how he came to embrace the capitalist mindset that the rest of his species jettisoned long ago. Since its inception in 1966, Star Trek has been more than just a science fiction franchise. It has been a philosophical thought experiment, a utopian vision wrapped in Technicolor uniforms and warp drives. While warp speed and alien diplomacy dominate surface-level discussions, the deeper foundation of Star Trek is clear to anyone who peers beyond the photon torpedoes. It is an exploration of a post-scarcity, anti-capitalist society. And because of that vision, one villain stands out as the perfect foil, the Ferengi. While other antagonists in Star Trek, the Borg, the Romulans, the Dominion reflect fears of collectivism, authoritarianism, or imperialism, the Ferengi uniquely embody the avaricious, cutthroat ethos of capitalism taken to its logical extreme. Their relentless pursuit of profit, encapsulated by their sacred rules of acquisition, serves as a biting commentary on 20th and 21st century economic dogma. In short, they work so well because they challenge the very heart of what Star Trek wants to imagine. A world beyond the endless churn of markets and material wealth. Star Trek's post-scarcity dream. At the center of Star Trek's utopia is the concept of post-scarcity. The invention of replicators, warp drives, and nearly limitless energy sources removes the economic constraints that define our present world. Jean-Luc Picard says it best in Star Trek: First Contact. The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. In this future, there is no need for money, at least within the Federation, no rampant consumerism, no billionaires hoarding resources. People are free to pursue science, exploration, art, or simply self-improvement. The Federation economy, vague as it sometimes is, represents an idealized version of what Karl Marx once called, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. While the show avoids overt political labels, the rejection of capital accumulation and wage labor is unmistakable. It's an aspirational break from the cycles of poverty, exploitation, and inequality that have defined human societies for millennia. Enter the Ferengi, and then there are the Ferengi. Introduced in Star Trek, The Next Generation as a would-be major antagonist, the Ferengi initially came off as cartoonish and ineffective. Their early appearances were marred by clumsy writing and unfortunate overtones that some have criticized as problematic. However, by the time Deep Space Nine rolled around, the Ferengi underwent a renaissance. They evolved into complex, humorous, yet incisive critiques of hyper-capitalist ideology. Every aspect of Ferengi culture revolves around profit. Their religion, politics, and even family structures are dictated by economics. Their holy text, the Rules of Acquisition, reads like a ruthless libertarian manifesto. Rule #1. Once you have their money, never give it back. Rule #34. War is good for business. Rule #35. Peace is good for business. These aphorisms aren't just for laughs, they are scathing exaggerations of the principles that underpin much of modern commerce. The Ferengi don't mask their greed with euphemisms like free markets or entrepreneurial spirit. They revel in exploitation, speculation, and manipulation, unashamedly presenting capitalism with all its ethical compromises laid bare. The Ferengi as mirror and warning. Why does this work so well within Star Trek's narrative? Precisely because the Ferengi force viewers and Federation citizens to confront the past they left behind. Quark, perhaps the most iconic Ferengi, famously lectures humans in Deep Space Nine. You Federation types are all alike. You talk about tolerance and understanding, but you only tolerate and understand when it suits your purposes. You're no different from us, you just don't have the lobes to admit it. It's a reminder that the Federation's utopia didn't arise from mere technological advancement, but from a conscious rejection of the values the Ferengi still cherish. The Ferengi are not aliens in the sense of being unknowable, they are painfully familiar. They are us. They are the embodiment of late-stage capitalism, Wall Street brokers, corporate lobbyists, and anyone who measures success purely in profit margins. By placing them in opposition to the post-scarcity ideals of the Federation, Star Trek doesn't just contrast two alien cultures, it invites viewers to reflect on their own society. The Ferengi remind us how deeply ingrained capitalist ideology remains and how difficult, yet necessary, it is to imagine alternatives. Deep Space Nine, a laboratory for change. Deep Space Nine deserves special mention here because it took the Ferengi beyond one-dimensional caricatures. Through characters like Quark, Rom, and Nog, the show depicted cultural evolution within the Ferengi themselves. Rom's transition from meek engineer to progressive labor leader, he even forms a union, is a clear nod to working-class solidarity and anti-capitalist resistance. Nog's journey into Starfleet reflects a bridge between Ferengi opportunism and Federation idealism. Quark, meanwhile, remains the most fascinating. Cynical and conniving, yet deeply loyal and often morally conflicted, Quark's relationship with capitalism is complicated. He profits from war, but hates the cost. He schemes, but also sacrifices for his friends. Through him, Star Trek acknowledges that unlearning centuries of economic dogma is not easy. The path from capitalism to post-scarcity is fraught, imperfect, and human. Why the Ferengi still matter.